Good morning, afternoon, and for some of you, evening. How is everyone today? My name is Moses Frost, and welcome to our Aviata Solo Flight Challenge, Chapter 1. I see a lot of people are still trickling in. I would say, oh, yeah, it's starting to build up right now. We started letting people in early, expecting that a lot of you would trickle in. So for those in the US, happy after tax day, which is not a real holiday. That's just a thing I made up. That's pretty normal. Um, thank you for coming to our workshop today. Let's see. A couple of things. Logistically, there is a Zoom chat. So if you're not used to the Zoom platform, you will see that there is a Zoom chat in the top tray. You can use that for Q&A. We have two or three folks doing Q&A today. There are panelists. For those that are helping with Q&A, I really, really appreciate it. As the Q&A comes in, they will answer questions in the Q&A section. However, for the workshop, there are going to be people that are doing the actual workshop live with us today. They're going to be running through the workshop itself. For those that are doing that, there is a Discord channel that we ask you to join. That Discord channel link will be placed into the chat of the webinar. There is actually, and it's also in the Aviata Cloud website, where you can join the Discord, and there's a specific channel for the Discord conversations that questions, answers, troubleshooting steps, etc., that you might be doing. Our panelists today include Ben Allen. Ben is one of the SANS instructors and very instrumental in helping me get this set up. So Ben is going to be our TA for the day. If there are questions that I cannot answer because I'm doing something currently on the screen, Ben will help. I'm not sure if Ben will actually get on camera and actually say hi, but Ben will help. You will also see that we will answer questions. Oh, there he is. There's Ben. That's what he looks like.
Great to
I
help.
just want to, yeah. Thanks, Ben. And he's gone. That's it. That's all you get. Sorry, that's all you get. So for those that are joining, let's see, we're up to 40 billion attendees. Yep, we've got more than the actual people on Earth. So we're gonna have Ben work extra hard. No, that's not right. 40 billion is not right. Let's see. We have 4 times 4, exponent 12, carry the 1, pi, e symbol. We have a lot of people. So if your answers don't get questioned, if your questions don't get answered real quick, we will actually try to answer them as quickly as possible. There is an actual website that you can go visit, www.aviata.cloud, where you will find workshop links. To do this workshop, there's only a few things that you will need. Oh, and there is the Discord link right there. To do the workshop, there's only a few. Let's see. Oh, there's a few things that you will need. Number one, you will need a Docker desktop environment, or if you're on Linux, Docker. That's it. The other thing you will need is Terraform. You will need the AWS. You will not need the AWS client. Sorry, that's in the container. You need Terraform. You need Git. You need a web browser, and that's pretty much it. And oh well, wait, very important. You need to have your own Amazon Web Services environment in which you can spin up resources. Now, the resources that you spin up should not cost you much more than a few cents. However, a couple of stipulations of that. Number one, that is assuming that you have free tier access to virtual machine. Number two, I would highly recommend that after this workshop, you just spin down the resources and then it'll be basically a few cents if you don't have free tier. Okay, now let's get started. Yeah, I see a lot of people trickling in. Yay. All right, let's get started. So chapter 1 is going to have a flight plan. We're going to have a few things that we're going to talk about. Number one, we're going to talk about AWS accounts. Hopefully you have some base knowledge of Amazon Web Services. If not, I'll kind of walk you through it. We're going to talk about things that are publicly available in AWS, like resources and the like. And we're going to talk about assume role and the issues with assume role. So, some advanced topics there for those that have never seen AWS before or maybe don't realize this. So, who am I? Who is this lunatic? If you go on the SANS website, you have no idea what I look like. So this is what I look like. All right. You'll laugh when you go to the SANS website. That's just a joke, internal joke. Um, my name is Moses Frost. I've been working with computers since a very long time. I started working in IT in the 90s. Why do I look young? I eat babies. They taste great. That's the answer. I am the SEC 588 author, the cloud penetration testing author. Um, there's a bunch of links in my link tree. You can visit those as you wish. But today I primarily kind of do this, and I work on the red team for a company called Nuvik, which we started about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Um, I also have authored other SANS courses like 642, the advanced web app pen testing course, and a couple of chapters in the Great Hat hacking book. And overall, I've just been on the internet for far too long. I used to work at a company called Cisco, um, which makes, food, beverage. No, not that one. The one that actually makes the things that power the internet. I worked at McAfee. I worked at a bunch of places. It's fun to work on the manufacturer to go, wow, that's why it sucks. But overall, very good people with with very good tech actually. So can't complain. Um, now, I want to give some credit here because I think this is we used to do this a lot, and I'm not sure what happens in the industry around this, but technology like this, any type of technology hacking or pen testing work or research, etc., couldn't be done without people that actually do the legwork. So you wouldn't know about half the attacks if it wasn't for these folks. And then you wouldn't know about the attacks. They wouldn't know about it without the other folks that did it before them. So um, for many years, there's been people that have been working on AWS security. Um, Scott Piper, he very famously did a lot around AWS security. Did a bunch of summits like Summit Route. Nick Frschetti works at Datadog. Oh, Scott Piper works at Wiz. Nick Frschetti works at Datadog. Runs a website called hackingthe.cloud. Highly recommend that resource if you've never seen it. Ben Britz, who did the original research around what we're going to show you today, put a link for his X at some point, x.com, Twitter, I don't even know. Spencer Geitzen, who worked at Rhino Security and is no longer with us, and wrote Paku and many of the scripts that we're going to use today. So I just want to make sure that we give credit to as many of the people that actually did a ton of this research. And if you wouldn't mind giving them a follow, following their work, looking at the products that they may be working with, companies that they're working with today, that kind of just helps everyone because these folks have done a tremendous job over the years, and there's so many others. There's so many others. That's not to diminish the work that others have done. This is just the folks that have done the work that I talk about in this presentation. I just want to make sure that I credit everybody responsibly. Now, let's talk about the class that I wrote. So first of all, I wrote this entire workshop that you're going to be working with. Is either in the class currently or is going into the class in the next revision. And so when I just did a class last week, I would say half the class, maybe a quarter of the class, were pen testers. That might be surprising to a lot of the folks that are here in watching the video to think that a pen testing class is not actually exclusively for pen testers. Many of the folks that come to the class are actually on the defensive side, they're on the architecture side, they're on the customer side, they're on the build side, And what they want to know is how we do our work, how to scope out a test, how to architect to prevent us from doing the work we're doing, how we are actually breaking in, excuse me, and then how is it exactly that we are able to get around some of the defenses that they may have been putting up, and then what they can do around that, or at least start building detections to be able to detect what we're doing. The class itself does not just focus on AWS. It actually has a ton of different clouds in it. So AWS Cloud, Azure Cloud, we do work on Docker, we do work on Kubernetes, we do untracked, we do Graph, we talk about cloud native applications, and the class is quite literally 50-50, with at least one of the days having 8 labs, and they're pretty lengthy. So there there are 30 plus hacking labs in a range that we set up. So you come to class, you're not a pen tester, we walk you through that. You come to class and you've never seen the cloud, we walk you through that. You don't have to bring a range, you don't have to buy a range, we bring it for you. Okay. And we try to do about one major update a year. So right now we're working on a major update in which we are attempting to enhance and rewrite certain portions of the class. It's kind of unusual because most classes at SANS are pretty static, but the current problem that I face in my class is that we don't have enough tools to satisfy the work that we need to do. So as the tools come up and as I put them into our practice at Nuvik, and as I start to really put the paces through them, then I start to bring them into class because there's something that are mature, testable, we know it works, we know it's part of a process, we know it's proven, and then we put it in class once we have hit that maturity. So it's very nice to know that um, these are actual practitioner tools that we use in our practice. All right. Now, with that said, let's talk about the workshop. To get started, a couple of things. You're going to need Git, Windows or Mac or Linux. Now, to be fair, most of the build scripts are shell files and not PowerShell scripts. So if you need to hand roll some of these things, I will show you how to do it if you're Windows. It's not that I don't like Windows people. I just don't like Windows people. I mean, I'm sorry, wait. It's not that I don't like Windows people. I just don't like Windows and people who use Windows. All right. So then we have Terraform. And Terraform, what it does is it's going to build our resources for your environment. I'm going to show you the difference. Now, everything that I've done in the Aviata cloud, I'm providing you as well. So if you want to simulate this workshop without having to have our range, you're going to get that as well. You're going to need an actual Amazon Web Services account that you can actually build an AWS Access key with for a user. You're going to have to bring one. Then you're going to have Docker, just Docker, any Docker will do. And then you're going to need a text editor, perhaps any editor, fine. You can use VI, you can use Nano, you can use Code, you can use Emacs, my personal favorite. Just don't use Ed. I won't have it. All right. And then you're going to need our container. Now, there is a GitHub link here for our container. Let's go ahead. Actually, let me bring up Aviata Cloud here. See if I can bring this up for you all. Okay. Go, Aviata Cloud. So this is the aviata.cloud website. This website, and actually, let's just make sure the Discord channel. Yep, cool. Let's just go. Yeah, let's make sure the Discord channel. Yeah, you should see what it was like at airports. Yeah, I work at Cisco. Really? Like beverages? Yeah, we make great drinks, malt liquor. You're gonna need it. All right. So here's our Aviata Cloud website. If you look right here, I believe, I hope. All right. Now I can click that. Hey, and you're gonna get to the link to the repo. Yeah. Great. And then here is how you get to the workbook instructions. Let's see. Hey, the workbook instructions. Look at that. If you don't like the graphics on this, you can hit that and hit light mode. You don't have to worry about clicking this. It's not a real clicky thing. So let's click that. There we go. Look at that. This is our chapter 1 workbook. All right, now I'm gonna walk you through how I've done it so you can actually see it. So once you download the Sec 588 workshop containers, you got to clone this over, right? Once you've done that, let's see, you're going to see a couple of environments. Now there's a start.sh. If you look at start.sh and run it, it will tell you to go into tools and build a Docker container. So if you go into the Aviata workbook, it says here, go into, well, first actually says go into Terraform. Let's do that first. Let's go into Terraform. Okay. And here is a, now I'm going to bring it up in VS. Do I need to? Nope. You're not going to have this file here. I have my own version of this file here. No, I will not show you because I won't show you. There's nothing there, but let's do this. Let's see. Yeah, that's what it's going to have. So Terraform TFRs is going to basically say, where would you like to build an environment? And if you don't know how to read the code, it basically will build out a few things. Okay, let's actually bring up this one here. I'm going to bring it up in VS Code so you can see what it looks like. So it's going to have the main.tf file, which is going to have all of the most important bits of this. So main.tf is going to have like the fact that you're going to have a S3 account that will allow you to search. It's going to have a role permission, and it's going to have a properly bound assume role. That's the idea. And then let me see. Can I get rid of the screen here? Let's see. Give me a second here. There we go. I don't know. I can't seem to get rid of my. Can't seem to get rid of my my nav bar for Zoom, so we're gonna have to move it over. So sorry about that. Yep. So here is the main Terraform file. You can see it's got a one IAM role, and it's got a security group that you are going to need later, and it's got a VPC. You're going to build your own virtual private cloud, and then the output of that. Let's actually just run it so you can see what the output of it is. Actually, let's just do apply. So this is what it would do. It would build everything out for you. It should anyway. And it's going to emit two things, okay, to make this really easy for everybody. One, it's going to emit this file here. What is this? This is the command that you are going to run inside of your Docker container. Copy, paste done. I like that. You'd probably like that too. This is going to be the other command that you're going to run in the Docker container, where you're going to be able to do copy, paste, run. This is already great, right? You're already like, right? Yeah. So that's part one. What else are we going to do? Part two is you're going to then go ahead and build a Docker container. Now, I know that that's odd, but this Docker container, when you build it, I give you a command. Let's see, where is our little command for Docker containers? Terraform it, Terraform apply, right here. You're going to build this. Now, I've already have one pre-built. If you're going to use the, I'm just kidding. If you're going to do the pre-built one, okay, these are the commands that you would use. Yeah, to run the pre-built one. Okay, And then you can use Docker tag to tag it to workshop latest. That way, if you want to pull it down and then locally you can, or if you want to build it by hand, you don't want every feature to work. It,
Hey, Moses, your sound keeps cutting in and out.
oh, does it? Is it better?
I think so.
Okay. When should I go back to?
Just a few 30 seconds, maybe.
Okay, great. All right. So what I was saying is that you're gonna run if you want to run your own Docker container. Trust me. This would be the pull command for my. Oh, sorry. This build. If you do trust me, this would be the pull command for the repo that's already been put up in the cloud from Docker. Pull down the container and tag it. Then, very important, from outside the container, you're going to go into whatever directory you check out the container from, and you're going to go into the tools directory, and you're going to go into AWS. And then you're going to do this. Now, what is this? This is where you feed the container your personal access keys, and I will not show you mine. Okay, these are your attacker access keys that are going to be required for you to do a few things. What are you going to do? These keys will require you, if you have full access, you have to have full access to your account, like an administrator or the ability to assume a role. You're going to be able to go in and put these credentials in. So notice that these are redacted credentials right here. And then these redacted credentials, you're going to be able to put in your keys to be able to run through the labs. That's critical. Okay. That is the first exercise of the lab. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to ask the audience, if you're going to do this with me, go into the Discord channel right here in this Aviata Cloud Workshop Discord, and I want you to say yes, or I'm doing it, or wait me. And I'm going to be waiting for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Let's do 15 minutes, right? We're going to do 15 minutes. We're going to wait till everybody's kind of there. Okay, I see people doing it. Perfect. Yay. All right. So we're going to wait 15 minutes. I'm going to check in and say, did it work? Are you all done? If so, then we'll move into the actual lab. All right. So let's do that. We're going to put up a nice countdown timer of doom, 15 minutes. And me and Ben are going to help anyone that needs help getting this done. So let's do that. Let's put this countdown timer of doom here. And yeah, we're gonna work on that. All right. So let's talk about snapshots. So first thing is I'm going to give you a primer. I give you a primer on AWS. I want you to take a look at these particular things right here. This is an Amazon resource name. Now, be very clear. Amazon does not really care that you have a username called Bob. Doesn't care. Amazon doesn't care that you have a server called heck anything. They don't even care what servers are called. They don't care. Amazon doesn't care. Okay. I know that sounds weird. It's a couple things, right? This is an Amazon resource name. Amazon resource names are kind of like uniform resource names, URNs. Now, you may have never heard of a URN, but let me explain what a URN is. URNs are things like when you buy a book at a library and you have something called an ISBN, an ISBN. An ISBN is how you know Chemistry 101 from one publisher is different than Chemistry 101 from another publisher. So Amazon has the same thing. It's called an ARN. And the ARN format is like ARN, partition, service. I have 3 services. Some of the services require data centers. And very important, you have this 12-digit number. Okay. And then you have then you have whatever you create. Okay. So what's the unique part here? The unique part is this, a number, a 12-digit number. Here's the thing. I'm doing a lot of pen tests for AWS customers. I'm doing a lot of pen tests for cloud customers. I always get account numbers and I always redact them. People don't understand why I redact the account numbers. The account numbers to me are supposed to be secret because the only difference between my user Bob and your user Bob is the account number. And I don't want to divulge that because that safeguards my account. So, what is unique in an account? Well, the unique part is the randomly generated 12-digit account number and the things that you create, the usernames, the topic names, the VPC ID, the role names. Okay. Now I want you to see this. See this VPC number? This VPC number has some pseudo randomly generated stuff, hexadecimal based, right? That is a way to add some salt or some randomization to the process. But not everybody does that. If I create a role called S3 and you create a role called S3, this could be a problem. You'll see why in a minute. Now let's talk about public resources. Amazon has a ton of different resources that can be made public. As a matter of fact, Scott Piper in the Summit Route GitHub has this whole list of AWS exposable resources, resources that in some way can be made public. All right. That's important. So what can be made public? Well, you can have buckets that are public. I think we all are familiar with this, right? It's a huge issue, right? We can have Amazon machine images that are public. So if I want to download the latest Ubuntu Canonical 2204, I can do that with a public AMI. However, your elastic block storage, your virtual machine images, you can accidentally set them public. Your remote desktop, remote database service, those snapshots can be made public. Notice this article above here that shows that just this year, somebody found terabytes of backup data from different companies in which the snapshots were made public on accident. Okay. Heck, containers can be made public, although not in the same way that these other ones can. So, what do we need to make this work? Well, we would need to know somebody's account number. Okay. Now, how do we figure out the account number? Well, there's a few different ways. The folks over at hackingthe.cloud have been cataloging this for a while, but people have come up with their own mechanisms to try to divulge someone's account number. Sometimes it's given to you. Sometimes some of their services show it. We had one customer where they were using something like the Slack magic email, and that Slack magic email service that they were using directed them to the Amazon Key Vault for the system in order to do like a cognito-based authentication, except part of that message request divulged the account number, right? So I've seen it there. There's actually ways to derive the account number from your Amazon IAM key. So if you notice in our workbook, I never show you anything, including my IAM key, because I don't want to divulge my account number for accounts. That's the way it is. Now, one of the ways that somebody figured out to do this is a gentleman by the name of Ben Britz. He is able to enumerate Amazon account names from S3 buckets. That sounds crazy. However, there is one gotcha. Amazon changed the way that new S3 buckets work. So the newest way that S3 buckets work, public buckets are off by default. There's no public, and very important for this attack, default, the ACLs that would make the public bucket readable is no longer on by default, which means that by default, this tool will not work. But for legacy buckets, this tool works very well. And as of this change in policy only occurred a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, which means that any bucket that was created prior to that is potentially vulnerable to this if they are publicly exposed. Okay, so let's see that happening, right? So we know the dangers of accounts, right? Let's talk about how we get what we do. Let's talk about Paku. Paku is kind of like Metasploit, but for buckets and for AWS and for many things. Paku was written by Spencer Geitzen, who's passed away a few years ago, over at Rhino Security Labs, and it was an amalgamation of all the scripts that Spencer had been working on for years, put into a framework that kind of runs like Metasploit. And it's still being maintained by Rhino Security, and it features categories like recon and enumeration, okay, privilege escalation, persistence, and so many more. It's a command line tool, or it's a framework based tool, and you'll see exactly how it works in a second. For us to do our work, Paku can locate things like elastic block storage, snapshots, S3 buckets, assume role vulnerabilities, which we will actually be doing in this workshop. But all those things rely on word lists, and so you have to build your own word list. In class, we talk about different ways to do this, and I even give some additional tips and tricks. However, I wanted to show you some of the methodologies that we use today. So I'm not going to go into this right now, but well, actually, I should. The first part of workshop, I'm going to demo. I will not give you time to do it yet. Let me demo both of the parts of the workshop. Then let me close the workshop, answer any questions, and then I'll spend time in Discord helping folks that really want to do the workshop now do it. I will go slow in case anyone wants to do it with me. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to find the Aviata account identifier by just using an S3 bucket. And then we're going to see if we can find anything interesting in that bucket and see what we can do. All right. So let's secure. So step one, we are a mercenary. Remember, we are trying to steal the plans to figure out how Aviata is flying around the world twice in a flight. Okay, so we want to steal the plans to this adventure. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my directory here where I downloaded my VM, and I'm going to go into the tools directory. Now the tools directory, I'm going to run the following command like this here. What this command is going to do is it's going to run a container. It's going to delete it when done. It's going to symbolically link the current directory's AWS account into root and the working directory into root. And we're going to run bin bash. That's what we're going to do. So this is that's strange. Oh, because I called mine something else. This is not your problem. This is my problem. uh, this is me. It's my container, so you don't have to do that. Your copy and paste should work. All right. Now we're going to use a tool called Subfinder. This is a project discovery tool that is going to do it's going to basically do passive DNS collection, looking for any remnants of the Aviata cloud system. We talk about this a lot in day one. So basically, we're going to do reconnaissance. We're going to find any host names that are related to this domain, and we're going to use public sources of information such as certificate of transparency reports to do it. So let's actually see that in action. So let's see what happens here. This is the fastest tool ever. This is what it's like to run a live demo. Come on, live demo, let's work. All right. So we have two hosts. This could change in the future. As of the time of this recording, we have two hosts. We have dev and the naked domain, right? Not bad. So, and it did this through certificate transparency reports. If you actually want to see that, you can go into like something like cert.sh. Oh, that's kind of weird. Oh, there we go. Cert.sh. And you can look for aviata.cloud. And let's see what you find. You find the dev and the star. That's how the subfinder was able to work. Right? Cool. So that's what this is doing. All right. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and see what the next step is here. We're going to use a tool called S3 Scanner. And S3 Scanner, we're going to feed it. So this is the contents of our subfinder. And well, mine's a little bit, actually, you know what? Mine's a little bit dirty. Let me actually fix that so you don't have that so many things in there, old things in there. Let's try that again so you can have a good subfinder check. So I don't want you to see like buckets that are just gonna be stacked up in there for no reason. All right. So now let's do this again. There we go. So now let's go ahead and use the bucket finder here. So this is a tool called S3 Scanner. Now you see how it says all users read. If you do not see this here, the next step is not going to work. Okay. That is whenever you're in the wild, when you're in doing things and you see that this is a bucket that exists, and where it is, and you see all users read. If you don't see this ACL applied, the next step is just not going to work. All right. So next step, what we're going to do is we're going to use this. Now, what is this? Well, this is going to come from Terraform. And what you're going to do is you're going to run this tool. It's going to assume your default profile. Remember, we gave you a specific role that's going to perform this action. Okay. So if you go into your Terraform, go into that Terraform here. And we go to Terraform, and you look at the show the output command. You're going to see that we Terraform output. You're going to see that we gave you this command. This is that command that we told you you're going to have to just paste right here. And because I try to make this easy for everybody in class, you're going to see that it's going to start to enumerate based on our profile the bucket. This can take a while. Yes, it can. This can take a while. But you will see eventually a 12-digit number. See? Yeah. Now, I know you're going to say, well, man, that's going to take a long time. It does. It takes a while. This is leveraging the Amazon Web Services API to do the work, and it's going to try every single number. And the higher the number is, the slower it's going to return. So notice the zero came back right away because it's brute forcing every single account number. Okay. And hopefully we're almost done. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8. So 4 more numbers and we're done. Now watch, it's gonna be 9999. It's gonna be the highest numbers ever. It's 8. It's probably gonna be 9 or 7 or something crazy. 4. That's not bad. Okay, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. There we go. Come on. One more. I think one more. I think. Hey, there's it. So this is our account number. All right. Now, what can we do with it? Let's look at Paku. So you jump into Paku and we're going to turn on virtual environments and we're going to run into Paku. Now, Paku is a very strange beast. Um, what do you want to call this session? We're going to call it Aviata. We can call it whatever you want. Then we're going to import keys. I'm going to import all the keys. Now, notice that I have one called Aviata in there. That's going to be for later. So yours will just say imported default, and that's fine. I recommend you keep that. All right. Then we're going to do a enumeration of snapshots, and we're going to use this account number to target our enumeration of snapshots. So we're going to use our attacker key to look at the target or victim account, looking for snapshots of their virtual machines that they may have shared publicly and not known it. All right. Now this is going to go across every data center, so it's going to require. This is going to leave a very noisy event. Okay. Oh, and there we go. We found a snapshot right there. Right. So that's an Amazon. So that's a snapshot. Okay. Now, what can we do with this snapshot? Well, when we're done, I'll show you. Let's just I'm just gonna. Well, let's see. I gotta wait because I think at the bottom. Yeah, I'm gonna copy this, exit, and I'm gonna do the following command. I'm gonna do an AWS copy snapshot, and towards the end of this command, you see where it says snap something something something. I'm gonna copy and paste, and the output of this command is going to be this. This is the snapshot that is in my account. I just copied the attacker snapshot into my attacker tenant. So victim snapshot, attacker tenant, copied it over. Now that I've copied it over, I'm going to run this command so that I can keep the snapshot ID. Ooh. Oh, okay. And then I'm going to run this command, which sets the Amazon machine image for Ubuntu 2204, right? And then I'm going to create a key pair. Well, surprise on you, I've already done that. Let's just make sure my worker has my attacker key. Yep, it does. You're going to create a key pair. Only do this once because if not, you're going to have problems. And then we're going to do this. This is going to create a mappings file. What is in the mappings file? The mappings file is going to tell the virtual machine that it has a snapshot to mount as a secondary drive. That's what it's going to be mounted there. So then we can actually go back to our Terraform and grab this other command. This is the other command to grab to build a machine to make your life easier. It's tuned to your environment. Okay. Now we got to let this machine boot. Okay. Let's see if we can do that. Okay. Oh, wait, this is my fault. Some of you may have run this command twice, like me. For those that have, like me, you're going to have 2 IP addresses. The only way to work this out is to figure out what instance you have. Let's see, what instance did I have? My instance number was 1DD. 1DD. That's not it. It's just the other one. Second one. Oh, wait. That doesn't make sense. Ah, 1DD. Oh, maybe if I scroll to the third machine, I could figure this out. Let's see. So I have 3 of them running. Great. 1DD. There you go. So this is my IP address. So let's do that. So for me, I'm going to do this. And I'm probably like, what is he doing? I set this variable so that you all don't have to. Now, mind you, yours is going to be, you've never set this up before. I've done it like 7 times. So this is my fault. But for you, once you do that, you should be able to just SSH in like this. You should not have to set it manually like I did. All right, cool. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount this drive, this partition over. And then we're going to look for files in here. I see we have an OPT directory. Yeah, let's look in there. And look, there's a file called MNT opt Aviata data plans. So now that's one example of how we would do this, right? From a public snapshot. Okay, next thing is, let's go ahead and oh, all right. So that's one lab. The next lab, hey, I'm gonna have to explain assume role. I'm gonna have to talk about confused deputy and then assume role. If you look all over the Amazon Web Services configuration everywhere, you'll see this thing called confused deputy. And before I started working with Amazon Web Services security, I did not know what confused deputy was. It took me a while to figure out what this actually is. It's not an Amazon specific bug. It's a generic bug. It's just that Amazon loves to use confused deputy everywhere. You can do a confused deputy attack. In order to do that, you have to formulate a plan. Now, look at this scenario here. Imagine that you have a service provider and like a service provider like Microsoft, and Microsoft says, "Hey, I want to read buckets from my customers, and I want to do that to collect logs and feed them into Microsoft." Right? This is where Microsoft could give you a policy to assume a role in that account to be able to perform that action. That's what it's useful for. So what the heck does that have to do with a confused deputy? Well, let's talk about deputies for a minute. Let's say that I write a compiler. This is right from class, by the way. This is how I teach confused deputy in class. Let's say that I wrote a compiler. This is the Moses compiler. In this scenario, the deputy is the compiler. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to know is, imagine in that compiler, we feed it 2 variables, source code and the name of the file, a.out. When you compile things, the output is the file name and binary. Okay. But because it's a compiler hosted, I want to be able to bill you. I want to put in the amount to be billed and billing.txt. How do I confuse the deputy? Well, what if I call this file billing.txt, such that instead of billing you for money, you get source code? If I overwrite the file, I might be able to get free compilation services. That is a confused deputy, where I've confused the deputy to do a thing that nobody thought it could do. So how does that apply to IAM? Well, when you tell IAM that it has a role trust policy to trust someone, and that someone is star or that someone is all of AWS, anyone in AWS would be able to assume that role, even though that was not the intended purpose. And so you've confused IAM, you've confused the deputy. That's what a confused deputy attack is. That's how we weaponize it. Now, we can assume when assume role can be fixed, and by the way, there are ways to fix it with things like external ID, source ARN, making sure that only certain people can do things, or making sure that other people can do, can access it. If you do all that, there is no retroactive fix for this, right? So if I give you a broken policy, and then that policy tends to be fixed later, and then you don't fix it, there are no retroactive ways for me to tell you to pull back that policy and do it. You have to manually do it, which makes confused deputy attacks kind of evil. So here's another scenario where knowing the account number might be able to be a problem. So the first one, knowing the account number, we got a public disk, a public bucket, something that we could mount on our VM. In this scenario, what we have is an assume role breach where we can now, oops, sorry about that, where we can now go in and we can actually do some interesting damage. So for example, let's go into here, into our assume role, and I'm going to build a simple word list. Now you can build a word list of many things. I got to exit out of here. You can build a word list with common service provider role names, of which I found some. Like if you want to see some fun ones, here's AWS Control Tower best practices. I always show this in class. People do not believe me. Okay, so here's the best practice for Control Tower in AWS, which is a very powerful, scary service. And there's a security section, of course, there would be, right? And in the, IAM section, that's different, right? And it says prevent confused deputy attack. We recommend using this and this condition and how to do it, etc. Now let's look at the roles. First role is control tower admin role. Right here, this is vulnerable. This is vulnerable. In order for you to assume this role, if you put it and copied and pasted it just like this and called it this, which I've seen people do, this is vulnerable. This does not constrain it. All I need to do is use control tower on your account, and I can be vulnerable. Let's see what else. This one is vulnerable. Just so I use control tower. This one is vulnerable. I just have to have a role called AWS control tower execution. That's all I need to match this policy. Or is this a statement? No, it's a statement. So this, yeah, it's still vulnerable. This one also vulnerable. So all these things are vulnerable, right? As long as you know, well, actually, this one here has the management account ID. That one might be safe, right? However, you could just kind of see broken role trust policies where inefficient controls end up in practice document. So now let's play around with this assume role thing so you can see how dangerous it is. I'm going to create a word list. I'm then going to go into Paku, and I'm going to go into the actual CLI, and I'm going to pick Aviata. Then I'm going to run this attack specifying the actual account ID number of the target. Okay, let's see. Let me see real quick. Where is it? Let's see here. Where's the target? There it is. There's the account ID of the target. And now it's going to enumerate roles. And guess what? There's a role called Aviata. There it is. Because this module that assumes roles in Paku can actually look for roles and usernames with authentication, it will dynamically build us an AWS access key in the far side in the victim environment when it finds a role to revert to. And so it will then we can actually use it. So we can actually exit it, configure the role called Aviata. And then I gave you this here to show how we can set the token like so. And I believe that is it. And you can see like when we call the identity.
Moses,
Yep.
you just put the command to configure the session in as the region name.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I have too many windows blocking me. Thank you. Uh, oh, live demos. Right. Now let's do that. See here. There we go. So here is the role that we dynamically created with the actual dynamically generated session that we created with Paku using the assume role of Aviata. And then we could try to figure out what it can do. One of the things it can do is it can list out S3 buckets in that Farsight account. Now don't get excited. It can only actually look at one bucket. This is the only bucket it can look at, the Aviata TLP red bucket. But you can copy things out locally and actually explore. Okay. Um, so that is that. Now, if you do want to clean things up, I highly recommend that I have some cleaner scripts on here to do that. Okay. Now, with that said, those are two pretty complex labs with the many questions that you will have. So, because of that, two things. Number one, I'm going to ask you to at least entertain the fact that we do a lot of this fun stuff in gory detail with a lot of explanations, with a lot of time, with hands-on. I do the class. We're doing one run in May with Aaron Cure, the other co-author. I'm in Miami doing a class, and then of course there's on-demand options as well. I'll be in Amsterdam in July as well. We have tons of training on this. So if you're interested in how we do this, and you're a defender, and you want to see more, I mean, we go into a lot of detail, and we kind of make it that simple where it's copy paste, copy paste. You don't have to bring your accounts. I bring them for you, right? If you are interested in that, those are the classes. Before I break off for people to do the labs, I'm going to open it up for Q&A, and I'm going to advert the next chapter, which is Brandon Evans doing this remarkable workshop, which is 510. 510 is the opposite of my class. If I'm attacking and breaking in, they're the prevention class. So Brandon's got a great workshop coming up on May 16th. I implore you to participate in that one. And for now, I will open up for Q&A while looking at the Discord channel and Q&A of the topics and answer questions in real time before we kind of close up the workshop. So give me 1 second. Let's take a look at a few here. Let's see here. Number one, oh, by the way, number one, very important, please, please, please fill out the feedback, 3 questions for feedback. Laura has put that in the form. That's number one. And then let me look at my Discord and see if any questions have shown up there. Second, I'm going to pause my screen share real quick. Sorry. Um, uh, so I'm just catching up here. these should be in the Docker container that we spun up. Yeah, we symbolically linked them in. So if you, the credentials that are here in the container, see them here. These are here because we spun them up through this volume mount. So he said, hey, whatever is in the tools directory, .aws, it's going to be placed in here. Okay, that's number one. That was an easy. That was easy. You 1 second. Any other questions in the chat? All right. Well, if there's no other questions in the chat, I'm going to hang around the Discord channel and answer any questions that you may have while setting up the workshop. Once again, I want to thank you for showing up. Well, let's see here. Wait, I might have seen one. Yeah, there will be a copy of the recordings and everything on the Aviata website. There will be a copy of the slides. There will be a copy of the GitHub. You can connect with me on the following social medias. I am going to stick around the Discord channel. I'm going to answer a bunch of questions, I'm sure. And let's see. Yep, I think that is all we have. I want to thank Ben and the hundreds of folks that are watching the webinar right now. By the way, for those that are curious about defenses, because there are questions that are flying around about defenses that I'm getting on a DM. Defensively, number one, you want to make sure that S3 buckets. Now, this is not the only attack path to get account numbers, but this is one. You want to make sure that the S3 buckets you have do not need ACL of read and are public. None of them should. You claw back that ACL. You do not need the ACL of read to sort of static S3 buckets. That's important. The other thing that I would recommend is that if you are going to do roles, if you're going to do assume roles, you're going to have roles. Number one, make the role name pseudo random at the end. Number two, make sure that you bind them to a user, bind them to a source ARN, or at a minimum, use the external ID. External ID is super critical for adding some salt to it. And number three, try and not give out your account numbers because as you can see, this is just one of many attacks that we can weaponize with the account numbers themselves. Okay. I will be answering questions throughout the week on the workshop. If you have any questions that I may not have answered, I'll be more than happy to run through the workshop, run through any of these Docker containers, and by all means, be sure to reach out to me on this channel, on the Discord channel, on LinkedIn, on X, and all the other social medias because I will be on there. All right. I really appreciate everybody's time in doing this, and I'm going to stick around, answer some questions. I'm sure some folks will have, and if you do want to connect with me privately, send me a DM and I will be more than happy to answer the questions that way. Somebody asked about Subfinder. That's a good question. So we cover Subfinder a lot in class, but for those that are wondering about Subfinder, I will show you one thing. That is a question that I did get. Subfinder. So this is the Project Discovery Subfinder. It's a Go-based tool. Basically, it leverages APIs to do the work. So the way that we're able to find the buckets was through one of the APIs. I will show you which APIs. Let's see. Where is the... Huh. Just to tell you which APIs it would run. Let me see if it's now maybe in a different documentation area. That's installation, that's overview. Strange. So basically, SubFinder, when you run it, here, I'll just run it in the container so you can see it. When you run SubFinder, you can look inside of the config. Well, let's just run it once, SubFinder. Or just run it once and build a directory. So you can go to .config, SubFinder, and there's a provider config file. These are all of the APIs that SubFinder can support inside of the tool. Okay. Now, when you run it like this, now I'm going to run it in debug mode. I think this is debug mode. Let me just make sure. Verbose. Yeah. Verbose mode against a domain like aviata.cloud. It will actually tell you which APIs. Hold on. Yeah. It would actually show you, hey, I've got all these APIs that I have tried to use. A bunch of them have no API secrets, but cert.sh, which was the certificate transparency report, it actually was the one that discovered these two domains, and that's SubFinder works. Okay. So I hope that clarifies that question a little bit for folks. Is there a reason that I perform? It's six half dozen or another. They all do the same thing. Honestly, we use a lot of project discovery tools because they're designed to be chained together. So we might do SubFinder to Naboo or things like that. So they just tend to kind of chain together. But my model is this: as long as you can get the data sets in a flat file or in a file that you can manipulate that feeds into another tool, I don't care. Use the one that you like best. So, for example, they make one tool called Shuffle DNS, but we tend to use pure DNS. We find it to be more, we find it to be less error prone. How's that? And for those that are wondering where the actual questions are coming from, they're coming from Discord. You can rewatch the webinar. There's actually a link in, let's see, here. 24 hours after this closes, you will find the link right here to rewatch the webinar.